Hello everybody, I'm back here in the WNEP Digital Studio with another COVID-19 update for you. We're going to look at the COVID cases, we're going to look at the vaccination situation, and we come here on this Friday, and on Fridays we get a lot of new data from the state and everything like that. And I gotta say, I think we're all at the point in all of this for more than a year that we just are looking at that light at the end of the hot tunnel and just hoping, let's just get this over with. So this week we're starting to see COVID cases go up again. None of us want to see that, but they are. The other thing though is that we've now crossed 3 million people in Pennsylvania that have at least one dose of the vaccine. So there are promising signs. This rise in cases might be different. Let's take a look at what's going on. So first thing we're going to do is look at the week-to-week trend. And we're definitely seeing evidence that Pennsylvania is on the increase. All 4 metrics we use to track coronavirus here in Pennsylvania are rising. New cases. We added 3,000 more cases this week than we did the week before. Hold on one second. I'm just seeing that there might be an issue with this. All right, I'm hoping that you're seeing me okay now. I just saw a little issue out of the corner of my eye. But anyways, so what we are seeing is that we have 3,000 more cases. Positivity rate, which is tracking the spread of coronavirus, that is up from 6.5% to 7.6%. Incidence rate, that is the number of people per 100,000 people who have tested positive in the past week. It's up from 114 to 139. Hospitalizations, 154 more people are in the hospital with COVID this week than they were last week. This is the first week we've reported hospitalizations going up too since January. So let's break things down a little bit further and look at the trends with cases. So here are the new cases. The light blue lines are every day the cases that we add here in Pennsylvania. There's the big peak that we saw in mid-December. We dipped a little bit over the holidays. We saw a spike after New Year's. And then you all know we were in this significant decline that was lasting for 2 months, from early January until March. But you can see we are starting to tick up again. This is the trend, the dotted line. So we are trending up. The question we're going to have now is this a bump or are we going into another rise? Too early to tell what's going on with that. But we can see that we are adding more cases. And I must note today, Pennsylvania added 4,900 new cases. That's the most since the end of January. So we definitely are rising when it comes to cases. These are the cases here across northeastern and central Pennsylvania today. Luzerne County had its highest since January with 135. The Lehigh Valley has been adding quite a bit for the past week. The rest of our viewing area, you see some higher numbers here and there. Monroe County's been adding quite a bit. They've got 69 here. Pike is on a rise. We'll go through some of the counties individually in a little bit, but we're seeing quite a few counties that are low. 1 case in Sullivan, 0 in Union today, 4 in Montour. So this isn't a widespread that every county is seeing an increase in cases, but again, we are seeing the cases go up. This does not look as bad as what we were seeing back in January and December, but again, the numbers are starting to get a little bit higher. When we look at the positivity rates, this is again the percent of people that went this past week to get a test for coronavirus and got a positive result back. This is the first time we have this many counties above 10% in a few weeks. Just to make a note of this, back in January, a lot of these counties that we were seeing on this list were above 20%. So we are still lower, and I want to make that clear throughout this. Things are rising, but we're way lower than we were in January. Obviously, we don't want to get back to where we were in January, but the positivity rate showing that community spread, so to speak. There you see those numbers: Susquehanna, Pike, Carbon, Monroe, Clinton, Wyoming, Bradford, Schuylkill. They're all above 10%. Luzerne and Lackawanna, 9.7 and 9.2. The rest of the counties are all below that. We do have a couple counties, Union, Sullivan, that are below 5%. 5% is that level that the CDC and the Secretary of Health in Pennsylvania say is the concerning level. You want to be below that 5%. And you can see now that we have quite a few counties that are above that. Here's the hospitalization. So when you think of coronavirus, obviously there's cases and it spreads around and people get it. The vast majority of people that get it do not end up in the hospital. It's about 2% of active cases end up in the hospital. Right now, I think it's a little bit less than that, actually. So most people that get this aren't sick enough to need hospitalization. You must know some people that have it who say, that they just have a fever, maybe cold-like symptoms, lost taste of smell. And then people that got really sick but didn't need to go to the hospital. The hospitalizations are the sickest of the sickest, and we're seeing that go up a little bit. I do have to note, we are about 4,500 hospitalizations less now than what we were, patients now in the hospital less than what we were back at the peak in December. So there's definitely a difference, and we definitely are way lower. The hospitals are not as strained as they were back then. The big question now, as we watch this go up, and we're going to get to the vaccination numbers soon, but the big question is that a lot of the elderly and a lot of the most vulnerable are supposed to be vaccinated now, based on the numbers we're seeing. So will that keep the hospitalization numbers down, because the most vulnerable to getting the sickest should have some protection against it? Something interesting to keep an eye on, because we're in a whole different world right now than we were back in December when hardly anyone had the vaccine. Now, and we're going to get to in a little bit, 3 million Pennsylvanians now have at least that first dose. That's almost a quarter of the whole state is in the vaccination process. Here's what I like to say is the most important metric to track, of course, is you go beyond the sickest of the sickest and you find the people that pass away with COVID. And so here was our big spike around the holidays. And you can see we have had a significant decline in the number of people dying with COVID since then. And we're down to a level kind of that we were seeing back in September. And deaths have not shown any indication of rising. COVID deaths can tend to lag a little bit, so you can see cases go up, hospitalizations go up, and then a couple weeks later deaths go up. That just kind of makes sense because it can take a while to get sick enough to pass away. But again, this is another metric that we're going to keep an eye on, because with so many people having more protection now with the vaccine, hopefully we don't see any kind of increase in these COVID deaths. Here's a look at the cases in our viewing area. Here's that spike around Christmas. There's the spike in early January, big decline, and then we are rising. These are the 20 counties that make up our viewing area, tracking the trends in our viewing area. And you can see we are trending up. And the question is now just how far we are going to trend upwards. And we'll find that out in the weeks to come. And here's Luzerne County. We'll go through a few of the counties in our area just to look at their trends. Luzerne saw that big spike around the holidays, a decline there. Starting to go up a little bit. I said today that Luzerne County had its highest case total that it's had in more than a month. Lackawanna County, the same thing. It had a really steep decline in case numbers through January. It's leveled off a little bit and seeing a little bit of a bump there too. So we're seeing some evidence of trending up in Lackawanna. The biggest evidence of trending up is in Monroe County. You can see it has been on quite a rise for the past almost month now in Monroe County. It's interesting, Monroe County has had for a while the least percent of people vaccinated in our viewing area. That has been improving recently, but it was also rising. So that could be a correlation there. Another thing that we like to keep an eye on with Monroe County and the Poconos, New York City has been having a spike recently. So while we don't know for sure that that's impacting the Poconos and say other places that are more tied in with New York, there definitely has been a spike in New York. The Poconos definitely have a link with New York. That's how we saw that first rise in the Poconos way back more than a year ago. So we'll keep an eye on that. Lycoming County declined, leveled off, and it's kind of just stayed in that level. Not a big increase or trending up in Lycoming. And same thing with Bradford. It was up for quite a while, and you see it just this week is starting to see another increase in its trending up. Northumberland County, same thing, up at this level for a while, around 80. Now it's adding, just for perspective, averaging around 20 cases per day. And that's what I just want to go back and show, like with some of this. Bradford was averaging around 45 cases a day back around the holidays. Now it's averaging more towards 15. Same thing with Lycoming, was averaging 150, now averaging around 25. So you see they're big differences. Monroe was averaging around 100, now it's averaging about 60. So Monroe, you're noticing that. Lackawanna was averaging around 150 back then, it's averaging down near 50. So again, I want to point out that we are at a much better place than we were a few months ago. Schuylkill County, same thing, a big decline after a long rise. It has had a big decline. A little uptick in Schuylkill the past few days. We'll keep an eye on that as well. But nowhere near what Schuylkill County was seeing back in the wintertime. So that gets us to the vaccine itself. And let's take a look at some of the numbers that we're seeing with that. So 4.7 million shots have been given so far. This is the latest data from the Department of Health. So 4.7 million total shots. Of that, 3 million people have had at least one dose of the vaccine, so are partially vaccinated. Again, that's about we're getting to be around a quarter of Pennsylvania's 12.8 million people. Fully vaccinated now, we're up to 1.6 million. I changed the color on this graph. I know some of you that have tuned in before, it was kind of a bright green that wouldn't work in this studio and on Facebook Live, so I hope this orange looks a little better. But 1.6 million Pennsylvanians now fully vaccinated. Let's look behind the vaccination numbers, because we still hear from you that are trying to get an appointment for someone in phase 1A, especially the elderly. And so Governor Wolf has set a deadline for next week, the 31st, that he said all people in phase 1A should have an appointment. So if you're watching this now, let me know in the comments. I can't look at them now, but I will read it. If you are still trying to find an appointment, or someone you know are, and you're in phase 1A, what your struggles have been, just so we know here what's going on out there with trying to meet this March 31st deadline that Governor Wolf has imposed, saying everyone in 1A, that means 4 million people who were eligible at the beginning, all of them will have had a shot or an appointment by March 31st. That's the commitment the governor made a couple weeks ago. So obviously we here want to hold him to that. So let us know in my comments here just what you're experiencing with your attempt to get the vaccine or get the appointment, and what struggles or successes that you're having. So here's the new vaccinations this week. This is the new data from today, comparing it to a week ago. It's the highest week of vaccination numbers so far, 685,000 shots this week. That's 37,000 more than last week. 453,000 people got their first dose this week. 231,000 people got their second dose, so they're fully vaccinated. This is a stat that I thought was interesting at a time where Pennsylvania has been trying to focus on phase 1A and the elderly, that 28% of this 685,000 new shots this week went to 65 and older. So that, to me, and this is just my analysis, seems like a relatively low number when we're supposed to be doing phase 1A and making sure the elderly are vaccinated. 28% was all that got these shots ages 65 and older. And that may contribute to what we've been seeing this week, looking at the CDC data that shows of 65 and older in Pennsylvania, 67.9% have had the first dose. That's 37th out of the 50 states in the country. The US average is 70%. Fully vaccinated people 65 and older, 35.3%. That ranks 47th out of 50 states in getting seniors vaccinated. The US average is 43.8%, so we are below that. I saw some people say, well, you can't compare that because Pennsylvania has so many more older people. And that's true, but we also showed a stat this week that showed Pennsylvania, out of the 10 states with the most people 65 and older, Pennsylvania was 9th out of 10. Only New York was below us. Florida, for one, has a lot of old people. It was way up there compared to Pennsylvania, 10% better than what Pennsylvania is doing in getting 65 and older. The governor's office has been disputing this evidence and saying that, or these numbers, and giving some more optimistic numbers. And there's no question Pennsylvania's vaccination process has been getting better and more people vaccinated, but we're still lagging behind the country when it comes to getting 65 and older, those that are most at risk, vaccinated. Here's the vaccinations by age here in Pennsylvania, and you can see 65 and older is this side of that graph, account for less than half of the vaccinations that have been done so far. The biggest group is 65 to 79, 35% of vaccinations have gone to them, but you can see 80 and older is only 12%. That's the same as people that are 15 to 34. So just pointing out that less than half of Pennsylvania's senior citizens account for the vaccinations. And here's a look at it in our viewing area. The counties you see in orange, and I hope orange again shows up better than green, they are the ones that are doing the best. 26% or more of the population in those counties are at least partially vaccinated, at least have that first dose. In the blue you see they're 18 to 24%, and the gray, Bradford and Tioga, are lagging behind. They're both at 16%, so less than 17%. Interestingly, Monroe has improved dramatically this week. We added Wayne and Schuylkill to the counties that are doing among the best. And let's break this down a little bit further. I thought I had a breakdown a little further, and maybe I don't. Oh, I was going to show you the fully vaccinated numbers, but it's a big range of the percentages that are fully vaccinated, and that goes from Montour County fully vaccinated is around 30-some%. Lackawanna and Luzerne, they're doing pretty well. So we are seeing promising numbers when it comes to vaccinations. And I think that's the most important thing, is that hopefully with the expanded vaccinations that are out there, the rise in cases that we're seeing right now won't have as big of an impact as we saw back in December. Many more people are vaccinated now. Many more people in Pennsylvania have been exposed to COVID, and so should have some immunity to it. So hopefully that will stop this rise from being a significant rise. Time will tell. We'll have to watch and see. I don't know if you're in the same boat that I am, but I notice when we start to see a rise in cases that I hear of people that I know that have tested positive, and I have recently heard that. So there is evidence that we're starting to see that rise in cases, but hopefully as we get more and more of the vulnerable protected with the vaccine and everything, we won't see as big an impact. So we'll keep looking, we'll keep watching. I hope you find this helpful. I just see that a lot of times you see a lot of numbers that are thrown out there, especially when you're watching some of the national news. There can be some really big numbers. I find it helpful to look beyond the numbers and really kind of understand what's going on, especially here where we live. So I hope you find that too. Let me know your situations in the comments with the vaccines and all that kind of stuff. It's really helpful when you give us an idea of what's going on where you live and in your household. And stay safe, everyone. Stay tuned. And we'll be back with an update next week. And of course, we're here every night with a breakdown for you on the news. Happy Friday and have a great weekend. See you later.